I don't think the game's over.
Welcome into Triple Zeros. I'm your host, Josh Buckhalter. Follow me on Twitter at JoshyBuck. Hit up the Facebook page, Clocker Sports, the website, clockersports.com, and the email address is clockersports@gmail.com. Man, tonight's episode, we're going to start off a little bit more of the same. I'm sorry, I hate to do it to you, but I got to do it to you. We've got more COVID-19 NBA restart Orlando bubble dropouts as we see now. Wilson Chandler has opted out. He's also been joined. Now the Nets have kind of just been ravaged by this whole restart thing, and I'm not just talking about people opting out and injuries. I'm just talking about the noise. Period. Kyrie Irving was at the center of all the controversy of whether or not the restart should be happening, and then you had players subsequently be ruled out or have come down tested positive. Spencer Dinwiddie and DeAndre Jordan both have tested positive. DeAndre Jordan has already said that he's sitting out to remain with his family. That's the reason why Wilson Chandler will be sitting out, not for testing positive, but rather to protect the health of his family, he said. Spencer Dinwiddie is still on the fence, which is odd. Dinwiddie, his case, he's gone from talking about putting his contract up for sale to trying to put a sponsor on his jersey for some money to now being positive for COVID and still being iffy on whether or not he's going to go. By the time they go down there, he should be able to participate as long as he does the 14-day and all that. Going down to Florida, you have to do that anyway. So, it's not out of the realm that he could still play. It's again, he's had a very active offseason. Chandler will be replaced by Justin Anderson. But as I said, Brooklyn has just been decimated. They've already lost. They won't have Kyrie. They won't have their rookie center, Nick Claxton. He's out for, I think, rotator cuff surgery. I know he had surgery. KD won't be playing. I mean, they just don't have a chance. So, this isn't a great list of players, right? You're not losing top guys here, but you're losing enough guys to where I think, like I said before, and you're starting to see this thought process kind of prevail in that no matter what happens, no matter who wins, there's going to be an asterisk by this. And now Taylor Rooks put it great. That doesn't mean that this is any less difficult or any more difficult than any other year, but it's certainly different. And because it's different and an outlier, you have to put an asterisk by it because there are special circumstances surrounding whoever wins this championship. So that's just that, point blank, period. Now, again, like I said, these aren't big name players at this point, but you've also had guys on some other teams who are like Avery Bradley of the Lakers. He's on a contender. They are subsequently signing J.R. Smith to take his place. We know Dwight Howard was having some doubts about returning. It's not, again, like I said, it's not going to be the big names that are going to disrupt returning. It's the fact that you have so many different variables in this that there's no way you can look at it as any type of a normal championship, no matter who wins it. And that's not a knock on anybody. That's not to give anybody a boost when they do win it. Seriously, it really isn't saying, it's not a pejorative. It's not saying that it's bad. It's just a term to describe it, right? The asterisk is just letting you know that these are special circumstances, and anybody that would say otherwise to all of this is clearly not paying attention. Now, the other interesting part about this is the first guy who got everything shut down, right? Rudy Gobert, who was out here being all reckless, touching microphones and things of that nature, and he recovered, and so that was the signal to a lot of important people that, everything's back to normal. The NBA should be able to go down there in that bubble, quote unquote, because it's not really sealed as much as they want to tell you it is. Gobert's health, these are the healthiest guys in the world, and they're world class athletes, and this is what their job is to go out, all those, those lines. So anyway, Rudy Gobert comes out and says that his taste and smell still aren't 100%. Taste is more or less back, but his smell is only good close range. You can't smell things from afar. Now, I will concede that that's not the worst lingering side effect, and hopefully he'll recover from that fully, regardless. I can't argue that it's not the worst, but I can't make a valid argument that that anybody, no matter what their profession is, that they should go and risk some part of their health to entertain me. I'm sorry, that's just weird. It's just a weird thing to even suggest in my view. I know there's a lot of people who feel that. I'm not saying that they're weird. I just find that view kind of odd because while you can argue that that's their job, I would argue that their job isn't necessary in that regard. Now you want to say, oh, we pay them so much money. Well, that's a whole other conversation altogether. But my point is, if Gobert, after all this time, again, I don't know if he's patient zero. There's still some debate on whether or not it was him or Donovan Mitchell who actually started, but whatever. We, from what we can gather so far, what we know is that it's Gobert as patient zero. If patient zero is telling you that he's still not completely recovered from it, and this is again a guy who doesn't really have any pre-existing health conditions that we're aware of, is telling you this, right? God forbid there's somebody out there who has one that we don't know about. Then you got the separation from families for months, and if you do bring the family down, the family has to stay down there for months. I'm not going to say they stay down there for months. I'm not sure about that part. But you won't even be able to bring the family down until you make it into like the first round of the playoffs or past the first round of the playoffs or something like that. Fred VanVleet wrote about how this is the worst possible time and how he's unsure. You know, he's decided to ultimately go play. I believe, but it's there's a lot of back and forth and a lot of variables, and I think that the problem comes in when people on the outside start looking at these guys strictly as their profession, strictly as what it's, and you know, we're not going to get into any other areas where that might be an issue, but in this instance, it's an issue because obviously these are issues that would affect anybody, right? You can argue, oh, I've been going to work all this time. Yeah, your job's probably a little bit more necessary than going out and playing basketball. And this is coming from a person who would very much so prefer there be live sports right now. I can't sit here and say that I would want that to come at the cost of somebody's senses. That's senseless in my view. I can't sugarcoat that any other way. Again, I know there's many people who are going to argue that they're healthy guys, but he still can't smell all the way. Like, come on, man. That's a weird thing to be wanting to give up for somebody else, right? You want them to give it up for you so you can be entertained. That's odd. I'm sorry. Not sorry. But, you know. Anyway, in other news, Anthony Edwards, incoming guard out of Georgia. Anthony Edwards has signed with Klutch Sports. Now, if you know Klutch Sports, listen, LeBron James and Rich Paul are out here doing things. The empire grows, and it got me to thinking, you know, I was having this conversation on Twitter with my guy, Black Guy Wayne. That's his Twitter handle, shop with him. When you see something like this, all you can think about is what's going to happen after his playing career. Like we talked on the last episode about if the Lakers can get Trae Young and they can win something with LeBron in the front office or an ownership group, whatever. I had to think about what could Tristan Thompson. Then you have 3 Oklahoma City Thunder players, 2 San Antonio Spurs, Montrezl Harrell and Draymond Green of the Clippers and the Warriors, respectively. Those last 2 are very interesting to me because we already saw Draymond go out and do the public speaking, the video wearing the Klutch gear, saying that LeBron, his resume is impeccable and the things that you would expect somebody to say on Team Bron. That's neither here nor there. It's a conversation for another day. But having Trez and Draymond, 2 really energy, spirit, hustle, heart guys, right, for opponents, for key opponents. Now, Draymond's situation is interesting because there's a good chance that he'll be gone next year. He'll be somewhere else. Not high, good, you know, not a, how do I put it? Not a really good chance, but there's still a very significant amount of chance. More chance than you would have said a couple of years ago. That's probably a cop-out way to say it, but that's how I'm going to leave it. He could end up in a situation where he might need some help. You know, maybe he joins LeBron. I don't see that happening too much. I don't think their styles mesh well enough at all to see that happen. But these are guys who, if they are still there, Trez still stays in with the Clippers. It's just an interesting dynamic, right? To have the co-founder, basically. We know, like, for all the props given to Rich Paul for seeing the vision and being who he is, making himself into who he is, we can't deny the impact that LeBron has had on that success. And I think that's one of the things that you notice the most. or what you think about the most when you see a situation like Trez and Draymond. Like, I don't know. I just think those inroads are going to be a lot easier when the time comes to where these teams aren't built to last, because you got the management group of an active player really snatching up bodies. John Wall, like there's a long list of athletes who are in the NBA, in the G League, overseas, all those type of things. And again, I told you, like I said on the last episode, LeBron's path to the GOAT probably isn't going to be completely on the floor. It's going to have to be possibly another ring on the floor and then doing something front office or ownership-wise. And if he goes ownership-wise and he can, listen, for all of his accomplishments on the floor, the one thing that Michael Jordan has not figured out is ownership and how to operate a franchise like that. People want to rag on him for the Wizards years, and I might still do that piece for Pippen Ain't Easy about how his Wizard years weren't nearly as bad as people wanted to make it seem. But maybe that'll come out sometime soon. But with the Hornets, it's been rough, man. Can't get right is probably the best way to put that, and hopefully they figure it out soon, because again, Mike deserves to get another championship one way or another, but not the way they operate, the way they draft, the way they give out money down there in Charlotte. It's just not going to happen anytime soon. So that's not a good look at all. And before we switch up, go take the break and go over to the NFL, so I do want to recap that article I did release a couple of days ago for Pippen Ain't Easy, where I talked about pairing up Zach and Kobe in the backcourt. And what I found was, and it's confirmed by what I saw in the eye test. I had talked about it for a while, but I got to actually dig through the numbers of it for this article. And what I saw prior to the article was a lot of times they just were kind of competing with each other. Really, Kobe was out there trying to find his shot and just shooting green light, ultimate green light. And Zach was almost trying to maintain his control over the shot distribution. What I mean is, you would have situations where Kobe would be really hot, honestly. You know, he'd be hitting 2, maybe 3 in a row, and then Zach will come down and pull an odd jumper. Now, Zach's shot selection has never been a strong point, but it seemed to be compounded when Kobe was on the floor, because you really lost all of your playmaking from the guards when the off guard at the time that he started. He didn't start with Zach, but he started. And I'm not sure that it's going to be what people think, right? I think that it can work, but with the other pieces in that starting lineup right now, namely Lauri Markkanen, I'm not sure that you have exactly the makings of a winning team now. Will it be more exciting? Sure, but how much more exciting is it if you're still losing? Right? Like, that doesn't, that argument doesn't really float with me. I've always found that kind of interesting, because people have said that actually in response to this one. It'll be more exciting, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be winning. So that novelty wears off pretty fast. Devin Booker scores a lot of points. You think the Suns fans wouldn't trade a couple of those high scoring games for some actual W's? So let's not discount the quote unquote empty stat, right? It's a real thing. And then the Lowry part is, because they're not great setup guys and because they are really volume shooters, Zach has kind of proven to be that, and Kobe is kind of, we're undecided, but it definitely seems like he's going to be along those same lines. If they're not feeding Lowry, and he's not going to be aggressive enough to go and you know, demand the ball, you know, find his shot per se, then he's kind of useless in this offense, because you kind of have to focus in this league, in the NBA today. You're going to have to focus around your guards, and those two together need some more defense behind them. I think Porter's good, and I think actually Wendell's okay. I would like some more rim protection behind those two guys, because they're not stopping anything. They're not busting a grape in a fruit flight. Ugh, that's why I messed it up. They're not stopping anybody on defense, Zach and Kobe. Porter's good on the wing. You probably need another tweener there to go out there with Porter to be able to cover the wing, and somebody who can back up dropping into the paint, not rim protect. Now, see, that's where it gets really interesting, because then you might end up being better off moving Wendell to the 4 like he wants, if he can consistently hit the outside shot, and putting a Daniel Gafford in the starting 5. Listen, we're just spitballing at this point, but I just wanted to point out to that, or point back to that article, that there are perils, and that's the title, the perils of starting Zach and Kobe. We can kind of debate whether or not it's right for what, again, excitement, but is it the right move for the franchise? I'm not so sure at this point. And ultimately, I think it'll come down to being who's more valuable to the franchise. And while Zach right now has been involved in a lot of the offseason talks, don't think that won't pivot in a heartbeat if the Bulls feel like this is a sunk cause. Now, I hope I'm proven wrong because Zach has kind of poured it all out there. I think they just need to build a better team around him, one where he's not the best player on the team and is not the one who's got the ball in his hands and making those kind of decisions down the stretch, because that's where in clutch situations, if it's not a shot, I haven't seen too many instances where he's making the proper play in terms of a pass. And we know, I just talked to you about the defense, so check out that article. Pippen ain't easy. And I'm not saying I'm against it completely, but I'm just not so sure it's going to be the gangbusters that everybody thinks it is. And that's got nothing to do with taking Kobe scoring off the bench or even really impacted by Jim Boylan at all. It's really just the playing styles of the guys on the floor and what we know about them as individuals. So that's something to keep an eye on, and one that I really had fun looking at because, again, it backed up what I was seeing on the floor, that they're just not. Oh, they were also getting outscored. Read the article. It's a really in-depth article. Going to take a quick break, and when I come back, we're going to switch gears, talk about the NFL and my favorite player. So I'm already let you know, I'm a little bit biased. It's all right, though, because I can keep it right down the middle and I'll tell you what happened in my breakdown. Don't go anywhere. 000. Be right back. Now on 000, switching gears to the NFL. Again, follow me on Twitter at Josh E. Buck, Facebook page Clocker Sports, website clockersports.com, and the email address clockersports@gmail.com. Now, just mentioned this man last episode and had a writer, Will Clark, on the Clocker Sports Network. You know how it is, man. He wrote an article talking about what's happening in the offseason. Now, earlier in the offseason, I told you guys that quarterbacks would be dominating the headlines, and once again, it's proven to be true. But this time, it's one that I think a lot of people were telegraphing and hoping for and kind of projecting, and it actually came true. Cam Newton will be joining the New England Patriots. I'll let everybody calm down and let that soak in because it's glorious. Now, we know the Pats aren't favorites of anybody. Now, this is really just two polarizing entities, and I actually wrote about that for Clocker Sports, and that Cam Newton to the Patriots in 2020 especially, but it's perfect because it's the most polarizing figures individually and organizationally in football, and to have them come together at this juncture is perfect. The Patriots are looking to reclaim their success, their place across they're looking to reclaim their place, the throne, really, in the football world. Bill Belichick, though, more importantly, is looking to prove that he can win without Tom Brady. Cam Newton is looking to prove that he can win and that he can do it in a more traditional sense. Now, I guarantee you the Patriots are going to kind of craft the offense around him. But I expect we will see a lot more traditional concepts in his game this season than we have seen in any of the years we saw him in Carolina. A lot of people want to knock him for being a run-first quarterback, have no idea how often that was the problem, or he was required to do so in Carolina, on top of being surrounded by a poor cast in the offensive line and the weapons. He won't have either one in New England, honestly, at this point. But what he will have, I think, is a much better staff in terms of putting him in a position to succeed. And for those who like to talk about Cam, he's been hurt for the past year and a half. But when he started off 2018, the Panthers were 6-2. Newton completed 67.3% of his passes, 15 touchdowns, 4 picks for just under 1,900 yards. He added another 340 plus on the ground with 4 scores. Now, the rest, after he got hurt, remember, he hurt his shoulder that year. The remaining of his 6 games, because didn't play the last year. They shut him down. He completed 68% of his passes, but he only threw 9 touchdowns to 9 picks. He wasn't the same guy. 2019, he only started the first 2 games, and then he missed the rest of the season. When you look at what the Patriots have, the offensive line scares me more than the weapons. Like I said, you can still go out and, first of all, N'Keal Harry should take a major step forward. That's what young receivers do. And if he can take a step forward, I wouldn't be surprised to see Mohamed Sanu and Julian Edelman actually be more effective if that is the 3 that they end up rolling out there with. I hope it's not. Maybe they go out there and get a guy like Antonio Brown. And before everybody scoffs at the idea, clearly Belichick is not worried about the attention that is going to bring. Now, AB is a little bit much, so maybe that's probably a stretch. Maybe Josh Gordon comes back, but I would think that him and N'Keal Harry are kind of redundant in that, in their playing styles, and that you don't want to double them. But again, Cam's a guy who, if he's going to miss, he's going to miss high. So you probably do want some bigger guys. Who knows? We'll see what they do. You still got Sanu there, like I said. They need a tight end more than anything, and maybe I don't know what they do, because there's not really many out there who are coming in and being contributors in a way that they're going to probably need. I would expect to see a lot of the running backs out of the backfield, a lot of Sony Michel up the middle, and some quick passes. But that line, Brady took 17 of his 27 sacks over the back half of the year. The line lost center Ted Karras, and they didn't add anyone in free agency or the draft until the 6th round, but they kept guard Joe Thuney. So it's a mixed bag. Brady, after he started off the year hot, 64% of his passes, 2,200 yards, 13 touchdowns, 4 picks. But he finished throwing for 1,800 more yards, 11 touchdowns, and 4 more picks, while completing just 56% of his passes. Really 57. It's 56.9. The Patriots went 4-4 over those final 8. If you remember, though, their schedule got a lot tougher over that back half, and that's what people were kind of talking about as they went on that beginning 6-0 or 8-0 streak, or whatever it was that they started the season off. People were commenting constantly how they weren't really playing anybody, and that we should probably not be too excited or too quick to crown them yet. We saw what happened, bounced in the first round of the playoffs. That was kind of wild to actually witness them going down to being so dominant so early on. But these are the reasons why I think Cam will win. Now, you got to read the article to get the full breakdown of it. Again, that's the Cam Newton and the Patriots are perfect. On clockersports.com. First of all, you got the coaching staff that's going to know how to maximize his talents, and to the personnel that they have, hopefully they upgraded, but I think that they'll still be all right. They were 12-4 last year. I don't think they're going to fall off. 10-6 maybe. That'll be my call for them. 10-6, I'll say. If Cam gets the job. And I think that as long as he's healthy, he gets the job. Sorry, Jarrett Stidham. Sorry, Brian Hoyer. But there's no way that if Cam is healthy, he's not starting. You don't need, again, this goes back to the publicity thing. They don't need it, so there's no reason to bring him in other than, okay, I will concede that the Patriots got their penalties for the recording of the Bengals, $1.1 million and a 3rd-round pick. Again, that's a penalty, and it's negative pub, but pub is pub, and it's not enough to warrant the smoke screen of signing Cam Newton. So you have the staff. And even more specific, Josh McDaniels and what he did with Tim Tebow. Again, that was a decade ago. But I would have to imagine that he still has some of those concepts around, and he's clearly a very smart offensive coordinator and will know how to craft the offensive to Cam's strengths. I think this could be a Tebow situation. They won 7 games with Tim Tebow, and went to the playoffs and won a playoff game. Come on, man. With Tim Tebow. They got to do something with Cam. And this is all very rudimentary here, but the article breaks it down a lot better why I expect them to they still should have that top end defense, even though they lost basically their entire linebacking core. They pretty much replaced them all. And I just can't see there being any other place that would have maximized Cam, allowed him to sign for a chance to start, and a chance to go and get a big contract next year. People were kind of hard on him for taking a big deal. Richard Sherman was very vocal about it being a kind of highway robbery, and said that he wanted to know how many MVPs, former MVPs were out here signing those kind of deals, and Kurt Warner was quick to chime in. I think I get the sentiment behind it. Cam has done a lot in this league, and people do kind of discount all of his accomplishments. But at the same time, I'm a huge Cam fan. However, when you've been out for a year plus, and your MVP was 5 years ago, you're gonna have to take that prove it deal. Jameis took a discount to go play behind Drew Brees specifically. Teddy got paid, right? So I mean, for a small sample size. So I'm not here to lament the size of Newton's contract, because again, this was in comparison to Chase Daniels, excuse me, I should know that. Because he's got a $13 million total contract with the Lions. But if Cam hits his incentives, which I expect him to, his 1 year will beat what Chase is making in 1 year. The conflation of the salaries has been a major distraction in the fact that the Patriots signed Cam Newton. Like, y'all getting distracted from what's the real, what should be the object of your focus here. And that's the Patriots signed Cam Newton, fam. That's what's up. I just had to get that part out. Yeah, I listen, 10-6. I'm excited. Check out the article to see exactly why, though. Clockersports.com. Cam Newton to the New England Patriots is perfect. Before we get out of here, I have to hit on this one. Chicago Bears have been in the news. It's been something other than quarterback talk. Yay. Listen, if you're a Bears fan, quarterback talk gets exhausting, and I participate in a lot of it. And I'm still quite sick of it. So, a fresh take on what to talk about with the Bears, and Brian Hanley of ESPN 1000 talked about the Chicago. This is a few days ago, last week sometime. Talked about possibility of Chicago Bears moving to Arlington Heights. This is not a new concept, and Kevin Caddick, and I hope I'm saying that right, of the Midway Minute, brought up the story of Arlington Heights. Before, in the 70s, they tried to talk about moving there, and during the Ditka era, and they were really just using it as a place to jockey with the city of Chicago. Now, the Park District owns Soldier Field, and the Bears are only paying about $6 million in rent. So seeing them move right now doesn't seem like it makes much sense. They don't get out of that at least until 2033. But if I'm not mistaken, I read that they have a clause that allows them to get out in a few years before that. So we'll see if they try to take it on. What I will say, though, is Arlington Heights is definitely not the place. If I had to say, which I don't, but if I had to say, I would probably pick against Arlington Heights. And it's not anything personal to the town. It's just out of the way. The other option that I was hearing bandied about was Evanston. Now, you might have something cooking there if you're talking about Evanston. It's right up if you've been to the north side of Chicago, you basically bump into Evanston on accident all the time. When I lived there with my sister, that's pretty much what happened to me. Walking and you just be in Evanston. So that's not as bad. It's still far, especially if you're coming from the south. But it's for me, this is selfish me talking, right? I'd much rather go to Evanston or Arlington Heights, I believe. I have to look that up. I might be wrong about that. Maybe I don't want them to go anywhere. But this all comes about because the Bears have the smallest seating capacity in the NFL, because when they redesigned, they didn't want to knock down the pillars, but the design is so bad that now the historical status that was the reason behind keeping the pillars is now almost moot, because the society wants nothing to do with the situation. You also have the fact that they'll never be able to get a Super Bowl. So there's plenty of reasons to want to move. The feasibility doesn't seem there, and the likelihood seems even less. So while it's an interesting thing to talk about, I'm not a big fan unless they go to Evanston that we can talk. But even that, I still kind of iffy, because it just doesn't seem like, why just take it all down and try again. I don't understand why you wouldn't do that. I know you want to try to keep those pillars, but take the pillars down and move them out or something and rebuild right there. I have to look into why that's not possible, because that just seems ridiculous to me. Maybe they don't want to have the Bears play out of town again for a couple years like they did when they had to go down to Champaign while Soldier Field was being quote unquote renovated. It wasn't renovated. It was a reconstruction. They did it once, do it again, and do it right this time. Please don't be cheap. Please don't skimp out. I'm not so big on the retractable roof idea, but you fixed the grass problem. You tried to fix the stadium problem before, so you were very aware that there's issues with these things. Fix it again. Get it right. Don't move out of the city, though. That's kind of nice to have them right there on the lakefront. The skyline in the background is beautiful. You don't get too many views like that. So Keep that up. One other little tidbit about the Bears. People are talking about, and I'm going to write this for Last Word on Pro Football. People are picking sides on whether or not the Bears were right or not to trade for Nick Foles as opposed to waiting out Cam Newton. And they don't put it that way. They really frame it as they picked Nick Foles over Cam Newton. I'm going to point out a few reasons why that's a flawed logic, and the Bears were wrong, and it has nothing to do with Cam at all. They were wrong for getting Nick Foles way before Cam Newton became available, regardless of if Cam Newton ever came available, period. So that's going to be something to keep an eye out for on Last Word on Pro Football, coming out sometime tomorrow. Also, be sure to check out all the other stuff on Clocker Sports, including that Cam Newton article. Check out the No Countouts Wrestling podcast. Be on the lookout for T for 3. I will be appearing on the Punching the Clock podcast with my mans Steven Ryan. Also check out writing from Will Clark, Travis Thomas, Eric Willowhite. We're out here trying to do it, man. Clocker Sports, tell a friend. You know what time it is. Until the very next time, that's going to do it for this episode, though. I am your host, Josh Buckhart. Follow me on Twitter, Josh G. Buck. Facebook page, Clocker Sports. Website, clockersports.com. Email address, clockersports@gmail.com. Until the very next time, man, you already know what to do. That's the horns.